Chinese drinking culture, right? Ganbei, ganbei, ganbei. First and foremost, I need to stress, Chinese drinking culture has changed tremendously in the 30 years that I've been here. And I can tell you, I'm a big fan. I kind of miss a little bit of some of the things that used to go. So I'll give you an example. So back in the day, when you would go out and have dinner with pretty much anybody, whether it was a business dinner, friends, family, whatever, you would go and you'd have one of these big tables, 10 or 12 people around the table. And if you remember, there used to be like a thin piece of like plastic that they would put over it. I'm not talking fancy. I'm talking like, Lao Bai Xing kind of big outside dinner, bao feng. And baijiu, 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 baijiu. And I had heard the stories before I came to China. Come to find out, I kind of like baijiu. It's pretty good. And what's the Chinese expression right there? Now, what foreigners are supposed to say is, 我不会喝. Because if you say, 我不会喝, I can't drink, then it's kind of hard for the Chinese to mess around with you. Because in the beginning, when Chinese are trying to get to know you, and again, this was especially the case back in the day, one way to get to know someone is to see how they drink. And again, this can go all over the place because drinking culture back then in Shanghai and drinking culture back then in Beijing, very different. But what I loved was you would drink, but then, and I miss this so much and I know I shouldn't, was you would always in the middle of the meal, you would have what I would call the mid-meal cigarette break, where everybody was in the middle of the meal, they were relaxed, we had some drinking, and then someone would be like, la 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 la, right, handing out cigarettes. And it's funny because that's so not an American way. And you would just sit there and enjoy this like Zhonghua cigarette or Hong Tashan and, oh, this is great, and have another, maybe now you're drinking a bit of beer. But it was relaxed and the whole environment was just relaxed. That doesn't happen anymore, especially in the big cities. I think if you go into other cities, you still can smoke in restaurants, but not so much here anymore. But I will share with you one of my favorite sort of learning how to drink baijiu stories, which I may have mentioned, I think, in a previous video. But it was like the Chinese will sit there and you're the one foreigner and the table is a bunch of Chinese, right? So they'll ganbei, each one of them will ganbei you once. So they're drinking one. Meanwhile, I'm drinking 1, 2, 3, like everybody around the table. So you have to be able to pace yourself. Sometimes you have to like pour it on the ground even though you're not supposed to. You have to play games. But I was super fortunate. I had no problem. I still to this day I enjoy my baijiu. And but watching when other Americans come into town, and I'll always bring out. I had my sister and my niece in, and Lynn and I took them out, and I brought them a bottle of Maltai, and was like, let's give it a try. And they were like, oh my God, it smells so horrible. I said, no, it doesn't smell horrible. It just smells different, right? I mean, it's a different type of alcohol. But no, I mean, it's in the bigger cities, everything's, I think, calmed down a bit. I mean, Shanghainese have never really been big drinkers. They typically get red, flushed faces. Go to Beijing, and then forget about Maltai. I mean, they're drinking Argoltuo. Like, this stuff is like, you can start your car on this stuff. But again, being able to drink, especially in Beijing, and I was, 20 years ago working on a joint venture with a big Beijing state-owned enterprise, and we were drinking Argoltuo at lunch. It's like, oh God, you'd have to go back and take a nap for an hour and then have to do it again at dinner. For me, it goes back to my whole concept of I'm in a different culture, I'm in a different country, I'm going to try to learn and do how things are done here. I'm not going to put my my outlook or my biases of I'm an American, I don't do this. And a lot of Americans will. Oh, I'm not going to drink that. My attitude is live a little. It's a fun thing to do. So put simply, Chinese drink to enjoy, I think. It's part of a much more social environment. You don't just drink. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but you don't go to a bar and drink, right, and get drunk. Again, there's some of that, but it's predominantly a drinking culture that's part of a food culture, a dining culture. The Americans typically have more of a drinking culture to drink. Like they'll go out on a Friday night at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they'll drink until 11, and then they'll go home and pass out. Maybe there's a bit of we'll have a couple glasses of wine with dinner or something along those lines. But it's not, I would say it's more about the individual. Yeah, you'd be out with your friends and what have you, but I find drinking is much more about the experience, the environment. You know, it's not one thing. It's part of so much more. It's part of smoking cigarettes. It's part of eating, right? It's part of giving big speeches. Oh, 大家我爱你啊, blah blah blah. So it's a ton of fun, and it just makes everybody much more relaxed.